Welcome to the Entre Pastors Podcast on YouTube. This is a show that helps pastors think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs. Well, hello there, and welcome to the Entre Pastors Podcast on YouTube. I'm John Sanders. I'm one of the co-founders of Entre Pastors, and I'm thrilled to have you joining us for this week's episode of our show. We're going to talk about chaplaincy in the marketplace, and we've heard from other pastors who are doing similar things that today's guest is going to be sharing with us as well. But we think this is a really natural fit for many pastors, especially those that really have that shepherding skill set, that gift of shepherding and pastoring, to take those skills beyond the four walls of the church and out into the marketplace, whether that's in a business or a first responder agency or a military installation, a sports team. There's a whole number of ways that you can show up in the marketplace as a chaplain. And if we repackage those services a little bit differently, you can charge professionally in a much greater way than what you would naturally think inside the four walls of normal pastoral church ministry. And that's kind of the work that today's guest, Carl Cox, is doing. He's pastoring and he's out in the marketplace as a chaplain, and we're going to talk all about that on this episode. So we're glad you're here. And having said that, let's go ahead and cut to this interview with Carl Cox as we talk about chaplaincy in the marketplace. Here we go. Well, Carl, it is our pleasure to welcome you to the Entre Pastors Podcast, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed listening to you guys so far.
Awesome. Well, you and I connected recently on Facebook, just on a thread. I can't remember all the details surrounding it, but I knew when I met you or saw your post, I was like, yeah, this guy has a story to tell. And we love sharing stories of people that have a heart for ministry, that are out in the marketplace. And I think that's exactly what you're doing. So we're going to unpack your story in our time together today. Tell us, where in the world are you from? Where do you call home?
Yeah, so originally from Kinston, North Carolina. Not a lot of people know about Kinston, but maybe you have heard some familiar names. Famous basketball player, Jerry Stackhouse, Brandon Ingram, who's currently playing now. We're very well known for basketball in this area. And so that's where I'm from. I currently live in LaGrange, which is probably about 20 minutes outside of Kinston, and where I'm actually beginning the process of launching a ministry here in LaGrange. LaGrange is not a big town at all, but I am, by the grace of God, launching that with my wife and some others here in the small town of LaGrange.
I deal with small town rural pastors, so we always argue about how small is. So what is small? When you say small, tell me about the size of your community.
Kind of typical one-stop light. Maybe, I don't know, I'm guessing maybe 400, 500. So it's not, yeah.
Well, I'm in a town of South Dakota that's got 2,300 people, and we still don't have a stoplight, so we got to catch up. We do have a Dollar General. Do you have a Dollar General? Because that's when you know you've arrived in rural small town, when the Dollar General shows up.
We have a Dollar General and a Family Dollar. Go figure.
Dude, we just got a Family Dollar like within the last year. Still haven't been through the doors of it yet. So anyway. Well, hey, so tell us a little bit about your ministry background, and then we'll get into some of the marketplace work you're doing. Like, what's that story look like for you?
Yeah, so I had a radical encounter in 2001, where my mom had a routine surgery. Thought everything was going to be normal. They woke her up the next morning to take a shower, where she threw a blood clot from her from her thigh to her lung, killing her.
Wow.
And I watched my mom being worked on and trying to revive her, resuscitate her for over an hour, I was told. I saw the end stages of that, but to the glory of God, he completely raised her back from the dead. She was reported dead for 52 minutes.
Wow.
For 47 days, went through hospital stay, rehab, all of that. I was right there with her during that time. And currently she has, she's taking care of my son while I'm doing this podcast. And
Wow. Praise God.
naturally, you can imagine a story like that would completely change your view on God. Now, I was raised in church, excuse me, raised in church, knew about church, grew up playing drums in the church band. And so I was always there. I like to tell people I had a drug problem growing up. I was drugged to church every time the doors were open.
I had that
And
same
so
problem.
that's my story. And got to a point to where I thought music was it, but God wanted more. And so I said, well, what more is that? And then it just became more of ministry focused. In 2014, I launched out with a ministry named Dare to Dream, which is, if you guys remember the old Power Team, they do feats of strength and stuff. Yep. So I did do that. Just a one man production, pretty much. I did that up until the point it was right around the time that I got married. God really challenged me with this idea of chaplaincy as a way to minister to people in the marketplace. I had no idea what it was, did some research on it, talked to some friends about it, and here we are, where I've been doing it now for about 5 years.
Wow. So I got to back up because you just passed right over a detail. Did I hear you correctly say you were one of those Power Team guys that was out ripping
phone books in half, bro? That's right.
That was you?
Yeah. So I was not with their team specifically, but I do those very things. Yes.
If I told you we'll pause the interview right now. We'll wait for you to go get a phone book. Me and Les just got to see this. No, I'm kidding. You don't have to rip a phone book today.
They're hard to find.
Yeah, right? What's a phone book?
Yeah,
half our listeners just said, "What's a phone book?"
Yeah, y'all tore them all up, and now look, we got nothing. Thanks, man.
Yep.
You guys destroyed the phone book industry.
That's right. Yep. So that or rip a phone book in half, break a wooden baseball bat over my leg, bend a bar over my head. You know, the normal stuff, right? Pop a soda can with my grip, just squeeze it till it explodes. The normal stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
That's cool. I mean, I know we're kind of laughing about it, but actually I attended event with some of our teenagers years ago. Similar deal. It wasn't the Power Team, but it was, a similar ministry like that. And literally one of these kids came to know Christ as their savior in that event from a rough home. And God used it to touch their life. So regardless of what some may think, like there's ministry in all kinds of things. God's given us passion to do things. So like, are you still into like lifting heavy things and putting them back down, or is that something in your past?
Yeah. So I'm a two-time champion power lifter. On top of all of that, I dabbled some in strongman and different things. And so I still have that. I'm only 42, so I'm still relatively young. I've recently had the itch to want to go back to reclaim a North Carolina powerlifting title. We'll see what happens.
Well, man, keep us posted if you do that.
Last meet that I did was 2018, and lifted in that meet over 1,400 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've lifted that much, but probably took me a lot more reps to do it than what you do it in. So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, let's get into this chaplaincy stuff. So how did that come about? And tell me about what you're working on these days as far as the marketplace chaplain role goes.
Hey, could I ask a question, Carl, before you get into the details of it? We have some people in our community that are in that space. Some of them refer to it as, marketplace coaching, and they know that it's really, pretty much chaplaincy. Is that how you frame it as well, or do you just throw it out there and say you're a marketplace chaplain? I'm just curious for those who may be into that.
So it depends upon which space you're current, or really actually the specific sector you're dealing in. So we'll talk about this here in a minute. I am a law enforcement chaplain. A lot of times they just call me pastor, or they'll say police chaplain or agency chaplain, and they'll use the term chaplain. Some people, believe it or not, they don't like the term chaplain at all.
Yeah.
Use what have I heard? Spiritual coach.
Right.
I've heard corporate coach. I've heard care partner. I've heard all these different things. So I guess it kind of depends on who, what, when you're talking to someone, because a
Yeah.
lot of people get whenever you think of the word chaplain, you think of hospital, you think of hospice,
Yeah.
naturally, of course. And so they really try to back away from that.
Yeah.
It really all depends.
Yeah, I'll say something and get your feedback on this. We're just kind of going into the weeds a little bit here, but I don't know if you know this or not, but one of my gigs is I'm a full-time firefighter with a fairly large city and large fire department. And so when I got on there about 8 years ago, of course, they knew that I was a full-time pastor because for a while I was doing both. I was full-time in pastoral ministry and full-time firefighting. About 5 years into that, I transitioned out of my full-time pastoring gig. But anyway, they asked me pretty early on to serve on the chaplains team. So I did. I'm not a chaplain. I'm not allowed to be just because of my role as a firefighter on the department. But I was on the team and I've been in and around pastoral ministry my entire life. So I'm working with, we had probably at one time, man, I think we had about 10, 12 chaplains on the department. And I was preaching to these guys all the time because I know pastors, but I also know firefighters. And I was telling these chaplains, your role as a chaplain does not open doors for you here. As a matter of fact, it's a barrier. When you come in with your cross or your collar, that's an instant barrier to the average rank and file first responder firefighter. You have to earn the right to minister to these guys and to serve them, and you have to build relationships. I'm saying that not so much for your benefit, but for those listening who might be in a similar role or seeking that. I don't know about the other industries. I know you do some chaplaincy work in other industries, but in the first responder world, you're viewed as an outsider. You're representing religion, which most likely is not a positive in the majority's mind. So you've got some barriers to overcome. That's my take on it. What say you to that? And how have you seen something similar in like the law enforcement chaplaincy work that you do?
Yeah, so I completely echo all of that. 100%. 100%. Actually on all of, kind of a little shameless plug, on all of my social media is at the Bearded Chaplain. Most chaplains they're not clean cut. Now you got to think now, I'm 6'2", 350 pounds. So I'm not a little guy. Law enforcement, yeah. Who are you? What do you want? You know, not so much from fire department, but definitely law enforcement. Who are you? What do you want? When you get into the marketplace, hey, where's your Bible? Are you going to preach to me? Oh man, another preacher. That's what we need. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it is my job, and I think it is all of our jobs. And I'm sure John, you did the same thing. Is that you would, hey, look, man, I'm not here from that. I'm here to be here for you in any way, shape, form, or fashion, for your family, for your mental health. How are you doing with your family? This job is stressful. I just want you to know I'm here to talk. I'm not going to preach to you. I don't have my Bible with me. It's just about caring for you in every part of your life. That's the way I go about it, and I think that's how we should go about it. I've had many pastors come up to me and said, "Man, you're a chaplain in a marketplace or law enforcement. You must preach to these guys all the time." And one thing that I tell them is, if you do that, you'll never last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Never ever work. And I think Jesus really modeled that for everybody, is that you have to meet people where they are. What I think about is whenever he would speak to the multitudes and to the everyday people in parables, stories, why would he speak to the disciples plainly? It's because they didn't understand, and there's a more effective way to get the message across, but you have to live with people in the sense of community before they'll trust you.
Yeah. Well said. Do you serve just one local department, or do you serve a multitude of law enforcement agencies?
I would love to serve a multitude of agencies. I really would. I'm only serving one right now. I would love to branch that out. Of course, I've had conversations with the fire department here. I love those guys. I
Yeah.
really do. And I see each other. We see each other at events and different functions, and they're always great guys. I just love, the fire department and everything about them. So I would love to branch out of that into more. I would love to completely cover all of emergency management. And we'll see, God's plan for that. I'd love
Well,
to
hey,
do it.
just a quick aside. When you see your law enforcement guys next, tell them this one, okay? Are you ready? Ask them, what do cops and firefighters all have in common? And then the answer is, at one time, they all wanted to be firefighters. So just go ahead and tell that to the cops. They love that one. So,
Oh my gosh. I've not heard that one, but I've heard of some others. But actually what's funny about that is there are um uh, we had a sergeant that just retired and a major that retired early part of the year, and they were both firefighters previous and then became police.
something must have gone wrong there. But anyway, we'll edit that part out. No, I'm just joking. No, so that's an awesome area that you're serving as a chaplain. What, I know you're in some other industries as well, so tell us about some of the other areas that you're serving in that chaplaincy role.
Yeah, so there's a couple that I can't really get too much into, but I'll just say it this: they are major corporations, and I'm able to come in. And now, whenever I go in, I am so blessed. I'm just not meeting people at the ground level. I am speaking to division managers, heads of human resources, marketing, sales, security. I mean, you name it, I speak to everybody. And it's always the same thing. I'm here for you, every area of your life. What can I do for you? I don't go in and say, hey, how can I pray for you today? I don't go about it that way. I simply go about it as, how's your family? How's everybody doing? One of the things I like to do um, is situational awareness. There's a particular company, and one of the offices in, I think it's marketing, someone has a certain football team that I'm not a fan of on the wall. Well, excuse me.
You can say
Well,
it. It's the Packers. That's fine. None of us like them. That's fine. Or the
yeah,
Eagles.
exactly. It's actually the 49ers, believe it or not.
Okay.
And so I will strike up a conversation. Hey, look, did you watch the game the other day? Oh man, I'll tell you what. Now, I'm a Bengals fan, and so I always, like to throw that out there with them. But what I've noticed is it opens a door. It's not anything preachy. I don't come around. Now I do have. So my chain is just a cross, but it's also got my wedding band on it. That's I don't do it for any type of clergy sign or anything. I don't do it for that. I just like the chain and it's got my ring on it. That's it. But I don't go around. I don't dress how one would normally dress, and I don't dress sloppy. But dress pants, dress shoes, sometimes a button-up shirt tucked in, pulled out. This is a V-neck polo shirt. Um, it doesn't have to be a three-piece suit or a tie or anything of that manner. And I'm just striking conversations with people. And what I've noticed more than anything is that people are open. That's one of the things that I really wanted to get across in your post was that the marketplace is actually really open and people are receiving. I think a lot of times on our end, we don't take that first step as being beneficial in our approach, and we don't approach it. I'm sorry, being very very beneficial in our first steps. We try to church it up too much.
Yeah.
Whenever you're going into the marketplace where people they really don't know God at all, and a lot of them don't even care to know God. So you got to give them something completely different um, so that it will allow them to open themselves and begin to drop the guard so you can have a greater conversation.
Well, you talk about church it up. I know. I think I know what you mean by that, but I would say many pastors are literally churching it up. They're kind of inside the four walls of their church building, and they never get the conversations that you're getting with real people who are far from God, who are not planning on attending any church this Sunday, and you just so happen to get to hang out with them, much of the week. Now, is this a full-time thing that you're doing? Is this a part-time? Like, how much of your daily life does this consume, this ministry?
Yeah, it's a couple hours a day. It can be, I'll say it this way, it can be as much or as little as I would like, but not to the point of full time. So I do have some other things, like at the community center here, or actually not here in Kinston. I teach a silver sneaker class, which is kind of a light aerobics class for senior citizens. Move around a little bit and use some 1 to 2 pound dumbbells. I have a couple of people that are over 90 years old in the class, and they're enjoying it and having a great time and getting them mobile and moving. So I do that, but I really love the chaplaincy stuff. And going back to, something Les said earlier about the coaching side of it, that's something that I've definitely wanted to expand more. Just not calling it a spiritual care person or spiritual chaplain or anything, but something more of a coaching perspective on that could be able to benefit people. I would love that.
Well, when we shut this recording off, in all seriousness, Les and I will have a little bit deeper conversation. I don't want to turn this interview into a coaching call, but we've got some resources we could talk with you about how to pursue that and actually, be able to do this at more of a full-time and profitable level. So yeah, we'll go there. And I just had to chuckle a minute ago. The visuals in my mind as you're describing a 6'2", 340-pound dude, working with 90-year-olds and little dumbbells. Like, forgive me for chuckling at that, but that sounds awesome. So I can't imagine what's going through their minds.
So there is a lady in the class who is 5 foot, and she is, if she's 100 pounds, then I'll buy you dinner. I really will. But now she comes up, and God bless her, her head doesn't even come to my chest, but I just love on her and I pull her in. Hey, how are you? It's really, really funny. And mostly everybody will tell you, Carl is just a big teddy bear. He's not gonna bother you at all. But I do. And those people are very, very precious people. And I have a good time. And they'll tell you I work them hard. I make them squat using the chair, and they'll squat. I'm serious, man. And the other day said everything we do today is going to be 60 reps. Are you kidding me? Absolutely. We're getting ready for Christmas. We're celebrating the Savior. We got to act like it.
Hey, before we're done, make sure Les has your information for how to sign up for these geriatric fitness classes. So he's kind of into fitness. So Les, I'm going to make sure you get that number. If looks could kill right now, for those of you that are not on YouTube, Les is good.
Hey, you can come join my jiu-jitsu class anytime, Sanders. Just come on down anytime.
All right. Now, that is something that I have heard that I would not benefit, and I would get beat up really quickly in jiu-jitsu because I'm very good at static strength, deadlift 400, 500 pounds, but you get into jiu-jitsu and it's just where stuff doesn't stop and you got to go for long periods of time. I just become a spaghetti noodle in hot water. I melt. I can't take it.
Well, that's always Les's go-to trump card on anything. He always beats me because he's got jujitsu and I don't. So he always goes to physical violence. That's where Les resorts to. So, well, hey man, I don't want to keep you too long, but I will just hammer this point home a little bit more to say, I want to give you an opportunity to speak to that person out there who is maybe had a really traditional view of what ministry looks like. Because a lot of times we find pastors feel kind of stuck. They have a really rigid model of what quote unquote ministry is and what it should look like. And so the thought of getting outside that box and doing anything other than is a little intimidating or overwhelming. So if you just had a minute to encourage that pastor, not that they have to do the exact same thing you're doing, but to just embrace marketplace opportunities for ministry, what would you say to encourage and challenge them?
I would say it is something that goes beyond your wildest dreams. I think about whenever the scripture says that God will do exceedingly abundantly above all you could ask or think. I'm in a place and in a position that I never dreamt. I just wanted to serve God's people. That was it. And my thought was originally 4 walls of the church, let's do it. But I have been I've been blessed to have been a pastor for a baseball team. And there's some of the greatest relationships I could ever have imagined. Police department, law enforcement, some firefighters, different things of that nature. I want to encourage you pastors, or even if you're not, but you're thinking about something different, if you're watching this podcast, get out and do it. I'm going to tell you a secret. Your greatest ministry and your greatest relationships are going to be outside of the church, period. It's going to be guys like John, like Les, that maybe they're a firefighter or maybe they're in jujitsu. If you want to really show the love of God to somebody, go take a jiu-jitsu class with Les, right? And I'm not saying him specifically, but I'm using an example.
Yeah.
Get outside, begin to think of God as bigger than what we always think that he is, right? I did that and my life has been changed, and I get to the point to where I can be having a really bad day, and I'm going to be honest with you, because we carry other burdens whenever we step into this role, because everybody's just kind of always excuse me, dumping on you their feelings, emotions, and their struggles. But whenever you leave and you can just help someone, one person, it's worth it. So if you're thinking about doing something in the marketplace, the door is open. There are not a lot of people doing it. It's a very, now you talk about a niche crowd, that's it for sure. But it is so rewarding. So I would encourage anybody, please, please, please go do that. If anything else, for the sake of the gospel, because it really needs to be done.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Hey, one other quick question earlier, because I'm going to ask you kind of the stereotypical question at the end. How do people find you? But earlier you said the Bearded Chaplain, and you're branded as that on social media. I'm just kind of curious, like, what's that about? Like, why did you feel the need to develop a brand around it? I think that's kind of cool. I think it's kind of relevant and modern. So walk me through that thought process of building a kind of a brand. And I haven't looked at your social media that closely. So, but tell me about that process.
Believe it or not, there was a guy I followed on YouTube years ago, and he's actually, I don't even think he does YouTube anymore, but he was an Army chaplain, and he had a lot of tattoos, and he would always call himself the Tattooed Chaplain. And I was like, man, that's a really cool name. I like it. And now I'll say this, my beard used to be a lot bigger than what it is. And whenever I started in law enforcement, it kind of became, a lot of people would say, Pastor Cox. And if I didn't know the police department had a pastor. I didn't know they could. And then they would say, oh, it's the big bearded chaplain. I was like, oh, I like that. The big bearded chaplain. I was like, well, let's take the big part out of it. Let's just say a bearded chaplain. Then I noticed whenever I would start shooting things, like one of the things I do on TikTok is hey, spend 15 seconds with me, the bearded chaplain. And then I may have a thought. And it just caught on. And so I began to change everything over to the bearded chaplain. And I love it. And I'm currently developing a logo for that now. But I love it. I was
just going to ask if you had a logo for that, because
that's smart. Yeah, it's begging for a logo.
Yeah,
because you're killing that beard, bro.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I love it. And so anything beard related, I love. I watch beard videos, how to trim it, how to cut it and style it, or different products or whatever. I love beard, and it has become a calling card. And so a lot of times in one of the corporate places that I'm able to serve, people will say, where's the bearded guy, the bearded preacher? Yeah. Or then somebody, oh, yeah, the bearded chaplain guy. And then that's how they found me on social media. Hey, you're the chaplain, aren't you?
Yeah, that's good, man. And so all joking aside, like, I think there's wisdom in that. There's a book out there, forget who wrote it, called You Are the Brand. And, I just think there's wisdom in finding those things that set you apart.
Don Miller.
Leaning into that. So
Donald Miller.
Okay. You Are the Brand, Don Miller. Mm-hmm. Donald Miller. Cool.
Miller, I think.
So is that where people go to find you then, if they want to connect and ask more questions and follow you as all things the Bearded Chaplain, or where else would you direct us to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So Facebook is just going to be my name. Instagram, TikTok is at the Bearded Chaplain. As far as not on Snapchat, it's taking a progression for me. I'll get there in time, but for right now, it's just Instagram and TikTok. That's where I post most. I keep Facebook a little bit more personal, maybe some family stuff, sports stuff. I love giving Cowboys fans a really hard time. I think we can all agree on that. But But outside of that, but yeah, at the Bearded Chaplain Instagram and TikTok, that's where I like to hang out and ensue all the craziness.
Awesome. Well, man, it's been fun connecting with you. Love the work that you're doing. Les, did you have anything else before we sign off?
I do. I need to correct that step out. That was Mike Kim.
Mike Kim on the You Are the Brand?
You Are the Brand, Mike Kim. That's right.
Okay. Thanks for looking that up. And and Mike Kim appreciates you for setting the record straight.
Hey, my pleasure, Mike.
If not, put you in a rear naked chokehold, Les. So get it right.
Awesome. Well, hey, man, pleasure hanging out with you. Keep up the great work, and we'll see you down the road. All right.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your honor. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Well, hey, thanks for watching this episode of the Entre Pastors Podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we release a new episode. If you'd like to get connected to other pastors who are learning to think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs, then we invite you to check us out on Facebook. Just search for the Entre Pastors Connect group, answer a few of our simple questions there, and we'd love to include you in the conversations. And if you're really ready to go to the next level, then we invite you to join our Entre Pastors membership community. When you become a monthly subscriber, you will receive access to courses, exclusive community, and coaching that will help you along in your own Entre Pastors journey. If there's anything else we can do to serve you, please visit us at entrepastors.com, and we will do our best to serve you there. God bless everybody. See you soon.